Welcome to Franchise Fix. My name is Ted. It looks like I'm going solo today. I think Andy and Zach are embroiled in some kind of controversy or a scandal or something like that. Not really. I think they're just busy on Easter. Happy Easter to everybody. I'm pretty sure this is the day that Cap rose from the dead, broke free from the ice. Anyway, we're talking about episode 3 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier today, so let's get into it. So, this episode opens with the new Cap, John Walker. He infiltrates the safe house that we see in the last episode where the Flag Smashers are hiding out, looking for Karli Morgenthau, and he's really hot on the trail of them, so that's something to keep in mind as we go forward here. We then go to a scene where Bucky ends up meeting with Zemo like he said he was going to at the end of the last episode, and he goes to ask him who recreated the super soldier serum that they're seeing pop up with the Flag Smashers and others. After this, it cuts to another scene where Bucky is talking to Sam and they're in some kind of garage, and Bucky suggests casually to Sam that they should break Zemo out of prison. So at this point, it seems like Bucky's already met with Zemo and things didn't go well. But Sam objects to this. Bucky runs him through a hypothetical scenario, air quotes, of how they would do it and how it would turn out if he'd already broken out, and sure enough, we see actual scenes of Bucky doing that. So he's kind of trying to let Sam down easy as far as, I broke him out, took my own initiative to do so, and he's here, he's going to help us. So Sam's not thrilled about this, but the fun scene where Bucky sends a note to one of the prisoners telling him that the prisoner playing chess across from him is actually going to kill him. So, you know, that he gets that as a distraction with a fight, and then Zemo is able to escape there by stealing a guard's outfit and sneaking into different rooms in the midst of the chaos. So after this, when they meet up with Zemo finally, they end up finding out that Zemo is a rich baron, which lends itself to the Baron Zemo character in the comics. That's going to be interesting to see going forward. He grabs the patented mask of Baron Zemo, the purple mask, and apparently he's so rich that he has this garage that they were in full of classic cars and even has his own private jet. So, using that private jet, they plan to go to this pirate island nation called Madripoor. And Zemo, in planning this, he tells Bucky that in order to enter here, because it's kind of a seedy underbelly of the world with all these pirate figures, that Bucky is going to have to pose as somebody that he's been before but isn't anymore, the Winter Soldier. So, you can imagine Bucky's not going to be thrilled about that. We then see Karli Morgenthau at a GRC resettlement camp, and she goes into what looks like a makeshift hospital room and sees somebody who seemingly is dying, and it looks like somebody that's close to her, so that's something to keep in mind as we go forward here as far as motivation for Karli. So then we see the team of Zemo, Sam, and Bucky. They're entering Madripoor, which, speaking of Madripoor, I found out just through cursory research, it's a fictional island in Marvel Comics that's most commonly in X-Men stories. I don't know if that means we're going to get X-Men. You know, everybody was speculating that type of thing with WandaVision. I don't know. That seems like just kind of a throwaway place that they could go to because it was a seedy pirate underbelly type of place. The more I read about it, it didn't seem like it needed to specifically do with the X-Men, and it didn't seem to be that it was a haven for mutants. So I don't know if that's really where they're going with it, but I'm sure people are going to speculate that way. So in their disguises, Sam's disguised as one guy, I can't remember the name of him, but he's in a very loud, snazzy looking suit, and he complains that he looks like a pimp in disguise, which isn't the funniest line ever. I'm sure it got chuckles from some people, but the funny part of it is after, when Zemo responds, of course an American would say that this guy just has incredible taste, and yeah, I really like that joke there. Going forward here, they end up getting into a car that's escorted by motorcycles when they're crossing this bridge into Madripoor. And as we see the city of Madripoor, it's kind of like a giant rave. You see people with firearms just walking down the street, illicit drugs probably being dealt. And while walking through here, you see on one side of a building, Power Broker is watching. So that's something to keep in mind as we go through. Zemo then has Bucky attack a bunch of goons at a bar to keep up appearances, essentially. And Bucky just runs through these guys, and there's a comment made about how easily Bucky is able to go back into that Winter Soldier persona. So maybe the violence and the anger and the aggression from the Winter Soldier isn't fully gone yet. So after this, they are granted a meeting with a woman named Selby. And I looked up Selby as well, as I do pretty much all of these characters who pop up, just in case there's any thread with Marvel Comics. The only Selby I could find was a mutant member of the Mutant Liberation Front who has the power to interact with computer machine language. But this character, Selby, in the show is a small white woman who has kind of an Ellen DeGeneres haircut. The Selby in the comics is, from what I saw, a large black man. So I don't know if they're the same character. Maybe they are, and they're going with a different direction on it. But I don't want to assume that they really are, because that was really the only Selby that I could find. So when meeting with Selby, Zemo wants to find out where this super soldier serum is coming from and how he can get a hold of it. You know, he's using the persona of Baron Zemo, who would be looking for the super soldier serum for himself, and he offers Bucky as the Winter Soldier and the codes to control him that Hydra used in exchange for the serum. So Selby's thrilled about getting this. She ends up telling him that a man named Wilfred Nagel is to blame for it, and that he is actually there on Madripoor, and that some of the super soldier serum is there available on Madripoor as well. I looked up Wilfred Nagel, and all I could find was in the comics he was originally part of the team that injected Cap with the super soldier serum, so it looked like he was part of that research team who developed the super soldier serum originally. So they've kind of repurposed him for this show, but we'll meet up with him later. So while meeting with Selby, Sam ends up on his personal phone getting a call from his sister Sarah, and Selby is really suspicious of this, so she's like, answer it on speakerphone. And there's a fun back and forth where Sarah is not explicitly stating what she's talking about. She's talking about meeting with the banker and everything like that, and hasn't mentioned Sam's name yet. So Sam kind of plays off of this and says, you know, he's going to kill the banker, and, you know, he's going to get the money, blah, blah, blah. He's trying to play up this seedy character that he's playing when he's meeting up with Selby. It's only when, at the very end of the call, she says Sam, Sarah does, and Selby's like, who the fuck is Sam? Because that's not who I'm meeting with right now. So that's when all this fighting ensues. Selby is actually shot by somebody in the background. Nobody knows who it is, and then they escape, and they even say that they're going to be pinned for this. So when they escape here, they get shot up by all of these bounty hunters who are after them, and they're escaping to the street, but they end up being saved by a familiar character, Sharon Carter, aka Agent 13, who has been on Madripoor, kind of off the grid, on the run, and this is because of the events of Civil War, where she has to help Bucky and Cap and Sam save Bucky and escape and everything. And they mentioned earlier in the show that she was on the run the entire time. So this is where she's been the entire time. She's actually been selling stolen art. She's kind of living it up here in this criminal underworld. But let's see. So Sam ends up telling her that he'll have her name cleared if she helps them, and she begrudgingly agrees. Like I said, she's kind of living it up in this world, but I think part of her does want to get back to the real world, and he uses Bucky getting his pardon as evidence that she could be pardoned and forgiven and everything like that for all of this. So she ends up leading them to Wilfred Nagel, and while they're speaking with him, she's fighting off a bunch of bounty hunters that are after them again. So Wilfred Nagel, tells them that he was hired by Hydra to continue the Winter Soldier program. After that was disbanded, the CIA then hires him, and they actually have blood samples of a test subject with trace amounts of serum in their system. And at this point, my brain went off thinking, oh, well, this must be Isaiah from the last episode, because he mentioned that he was tested on. We do get that confirmed later on that it was Isaiah. And then, so they ask, well, why did you stop making the super soldier serum? And why are you suddenly doing it now? Like, this was all 5 years ago that you're talking about. He says, I disappeared in the blip, and the program was nixed, because I was the only one who could do this. So after he reappears from the blip, he says that he was hired by a guy named the Power Broker. So I mentioned that we saw the Power Broker is watching. So with that, Power Broker is a character in Marvel Comics, and what I could glean from a little bit of research was there are 2 Power Brokers in Marvel, but it seems like there's one that they're going with in this case. And the one that they're going with, he's this seedy character who provides paying customers with technological augmentations to enhance their strength. So in this case, in this show, it looks like they're going with the super soldier serum as that. Not necessarily technological augmentation, but it's some kind of strength enhancement. So it looks like that's how this Power Broker is making money and continuing to hold power in Madripoor. He then mentions that Carly Morgenthau is the one who stole the super soldier serum, and that's why the Flag Smashers have it. And he also says that she wanted to use the super soldier serum to help heal somebody close to her, and it's assumed that it's the person that she was meeting with beforehand in the hospital. And this person actually ends up dying. Apparently this person has tuberculosis, which is apparently something that's common in these GRC camps with the over-inflation of people in these camps, both back from the blip and not. So after they question Nagel, Zemo kills him, and you can see the motivation there. He's totally against the super soldier program. He killed all the Winter Soldiers in Captain America Civil War, so his thinking is, kill this guy, nobody else can make it, it's gone. Now we only have to worry about the super soldier serum that the Flag Smashers have. So it's actually smart thinking on his end, but Bucky and Sam aren't thrilled about it. After he kills them, though, the bounty hunters that are fighting with Sharon Carter, one of them ends up launching a rocket from a rocket launcher at the lab that they're in. And after the explosion, Bucky and Sam and Zemo escape unharmed, a little dazed and everything, but there's a gunfight that ensues with the bounty hunters outside of that. And Zemo, who's actually on top of these storage crates. I forgot to mention that the lab is hidden in like a storage crate on a barge, it looks like. And he's on top of them. He puts his patented Baron Zemo mask on, and he shoots this gas pipe that ends up exploding and killing a bunch of the bounty hunters, and they escape in a car that Zemo seems to have stashed in one of the storage crates on this barge. Sharon Carter is offered the option to go back with them. Sam says he's going to have her name cleared and, come back with us, help us, and we'll have your name cleared. She says, I'm good, I'm going to stay here. And while she kind of escapes this situation, she's met with another woman, we don't really know who that is, in a car. And she says, we've got a problem, so we'll probably find out what that problem is next episode. We then see a scene where Carly and the Flag Smashers are robbing this, I guess, encampment, probably GRC run, and it seems like they're hoarding supplies, so they mention that these people are kind of sitting on a bunch of supplies. The Flag Smashers end up loading up their trucks with a bunch of these containers of food and other supplies that'll help people, and they've got a bunch of people tied up while they're doing this. So in escaping from this situation, Carly and another Flag Smasher get into a car, and she tells the Flag Smasher to buckle his seatbelt really quickly, and one of the cars that's left abandoned next to this camp ends up exploding. So she sets this off as a car bomb and ends up killing a bunch of people in the building. And she even mentions that, violence is the only thing that these people respond to. And so at this point, we've been talking about in this series whether or not the Flag Smashers are actual terrorists. It seems like they weren't full-fledged terrorists before, but they're delving into that area now. It's kind of hard to say that they're not at this point. So that's another thread added to this whole situation here. And to end the episode, Bucky is walking with Zemo and Sam, and he kind of trails off behind them to go on his own little path here. He says he's going for a walk. And when he does, he finds these little spheres with symbols on them. And he picks them up as he goes. Seems like it's leading a trail. And he ends up meeting up with what looks to be a Wakandan assassin who's been trailing them. And it's pretty obvious that she was coming for Zemo the entire time. And she even states that. That's where we leave off in this episode. So, to wrap things up here with this episode, it's really interesting some of the things that we get added here in this episode as we go on. So, we get the added thread of Baron Zemo, which is really interesting. He mentions that he is royalty, and, it was only until the Avengers and Ultron essentially destroyed Sokovia that he was royalty. So that's an added part to his backstory, where before he was just a special ops guy in the military for Sokovia. Now he is not only that, he's also this very rich baron. He's got a lot of influence, and especially in the seedy underbelly, it looks like, of the world here, specifically this Madripoor island. And it's probably going to help him that he has all these connections as well, and all of this money that they can just go from place to place to place, especially with Sam and Bucky kind of being free agents and all this, like they mentioned in the last episode. It's really interesting that we've got this Wakandan assassin as part of this thread as well, so it makes me wonder what Bucky will do in this situation, because we've mentioned before Bucky has some Wakandan technology kind of infused in his arm now. He was given refuge on Wakanda when he was being hunted by the government, and I wonder if he's going to have any kind of conflict as to whether he should turn Zemo into the Wakandans, because obviously he killed King T'Chaka in the bombing of the UN when he framed Bucky for that. But I don't know if he's going to say, hold off a little bit. This guy's really important to me. He's going to be super helpful. I don't really know where this is going to go here. So it's adding another level of conflict to the series that I think is really interesting. And I think we're going to really enjoy that. I wonder how they're going to be able to fit it all in these next 3 episodes. But they've fit quite a bit in the first 3 episodes with this 45-minute-ish runtime. So I won't be surprised if they'll be able to fit it in here. The Power Broker is interesting. This is a new thread here, and it gives us some credence as to who was calling Carly. Andy mentioned in the last episode of this podcast that Carly gets a call from somebody who is seemingly possibly a higher up above her. She seems like she's the leader of the Flag Smashers, but Andy mentioned that there might be somebody above her. It still seems like she might be the leader here, and I'm just thinking that it's mentioned by Wilfred Nagel that she stole the super soldier serum, so instead of the Power Broker being this guy who's kind of lording over her, it's more like she's being hunted and the Flag Smashers are target of the Power Broker. And I'm also interested to see what happens with Agent 13. I've mentioned before, leading up to this series, in our first episode of this little mini-series of our podcast, that she's billed as being a pretty big character in this, but she refuses the option to go with Zemo, Sam, and Bucky back to the States and trying to... I guess not back to the States, because they've been mostly in Germany here when they're trailing the Flag Smashers. But she's given the option to kind of come back to the real world here and have her name cleared. And I wonder what's going to happen with her. Like I mentioned, she meets up with somebody and says there's going to be an issue here. So I wonder, maybe she's working for the Power Broker in some capacity. Maybe she only helped out Sam and Bucky because of a sense of loyalty to them. I wonder if she's playing both sides here, because she seemed pretty happy with her position in this seedy underbelly of the world here on Madripoor. I wonder if she's really all that willing to give it up. It seems like she was pretty happy with what she was doing there, but it'll be interesting to see in these next couple episodes here. So there's going to be a lot of conflict, I'm imagining here. It's not just that Bucky and Sam and Zemo are hunting down these Flag Smashers, but we've got new Cap John Walker working in the background here. We've got this whole thing with the Power Broker. He seems to be the real big bad in all of this, but also, like I mentioned, the Flag Smashers are getting worse and worse as they go. They seem to be delving more into that legitimate terrorist organization portion of what they do in these last couple of episodes. So that's kind of concerning from their standpoint. Yeah, to wrap this episode up, I really enjoyed it. It was interesting to see this kind of new world, this criminal underworld in the Marvel Universe. I don't think we've gotten much of that lately. It's kind of cool to see this kind of street level stuff that I think's been missing from stuff that's kind of iffy as far as if it's canon or not, with Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Daredevil, that kind of stuff, dealing with the New York City Hell's Kitchen underbelly of things. I still wonder if they're ever going to incorporate that stuff back in, or if it really is kind of washed away from canon, because it did have some connective tissue to the MCU movies at large, but seems like they've kind of been written off. So I'm interested to see this kind of street level type of stuff where it's criminal underbelly stuff that characters like Bucky and Sam would be more equipped to handle than, say, having Doctor Strange or Strange get into all. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes, because even with these huge supernatural threats in all these movies, there is always this underbelly that's going on underneath things. So it's really interesting to dive into this. But I really enjoyed this episode. It's added a lot of conflict. It's added a lot of things to think about going into the next couple of episodes. I'm really excited to see how this all resolves. So we've got 3 more episodes after this, and I imagine they're going to wrap everything up pretty nicely and also lead into some other MCU material going forward as well. And thanks for joining us. Listen to the usual podcast. We're dropping an episode tomorrow when this one drops as well of the usual podcast, Franchise Flicks, in which we talk about the Bill and Ted trilogy. I'm really excited about that one. That was a really good episode and a really good watch. Follow us on Twitter at Franchise Flicks if you're interested in following my other co-hosts, Andy and Zach. Andy has a Twitch, Darth Buckman. He also has a Twitter at Darth Buckman. Zach, his Twitter is at _Zach Russo. You can also follow his other podcast that Andy and I join him on called Sacred Jedi Texts. That's what it's called, is Sacred Jedi Texts, plural, but the Twitter handle is at Sacred Jedi Text, singular. Somebody took the one with the S. So, fuck that guy, right? Zeezy. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for joining me, and catch you guys on the next one.